again, thank you so much for staying on, gentlemen. Your time is much appreciated. We left off with you, Mr. Madisha. Now we're going counterclockwise. The DA's opinion on the SABC's readiness in terms of DTT, that is something that we did discuss from a portfolio point of view. I know you did want to speak about the financial part as well, because I could see you jotting away at your notes saying, that's something that I need to mention. Please come into the fray here.
Yes, well, I wanted to say that, the SABC is largely funded by advertising. About 75% of its budget comes from advertising. 3%, only 3% comes from government grants. It's about 400 million rand. Now, STB's set-top boxes, the subsidy is going to cost around 5.2 billion. So there's an open question as to where that money is going to come from. The SABC certainly couldn't afford it, and I don't think it's been budgeted for by Treasury. So that's a big question that we need to get an answer to. Where is the money going to come from for these 5 million subsidised set-top boxes?
Where is the money going to come from, in your opinion?
We don't know. We need to speak to Treasury to find out exactly what their plans are.
What would you advise?
Well, they've got to make a plan. We've made a commitment to do it. It's a lot of money, but the commitment's there. Now it just needs to be funded.
All right. Also, I'm going to ask you to speak on that because it's something that we need to speak extensively about. Whenever Mr. Motsoeneng gets an opportunity, he always reminds us to pay our TV license, myself included as well. I also have to pay my TV license. And he goes at great length to detail that this is not going into anybody's pocket. It's not going to his salary or anybody else's salary. But let's speak a little bit about the finances now. It is quite a thorny issue that people must speak about.
No, it's true, Dalton. Sometimes what you read from the print is different to what you hear and you see. Let me start about this DTT finances. We were told that there's 5.2 billion that is budgeted for all these decoders and content. And we were told again that USASA, that is responsible for the migration, has already dished out a tender to the manufacturers, those who will manufacture these decoders. But one thing that I wanted to talk about is that when coming to SABC, I'm very pleased with their financial stability. For example, when the leadership that is led by COO, Mr. Claudio Mtsweni, came in, they found that the SABC was in crisis, in fact in ICU, with 15 million in their bank account. But today we are talking about 2 billion. And the board briefed us that it was because of Mr. Claudio Mtsweni. That's why I agree with my colleague, Honorable Davies, that what we heard about the COO is not what we found in the boardroom. We found a different person altogether who made SABC to be wealthy and healthy in their balances. So that's why then I go back to my colleague Willie to say that, look, even that 2% that we are giving them is too little compared to what we saw. I believe they will agree with me, compared to what we have saw. So that some of us were saying that maybe we should go to the drawing board and say, give them 60%. Because it's a public broadcast.
I see, Mr. Davies, your colleague is saying, I think that's where we split ways a little bit. I see you going to the left. I think he's going to go to the right. You agree partially, but disagree a little bit. You have also spoken, I know in a clip that we played a little bit earlier in one of your sound bites, you wanted very much to base your opinion on what the AG will find. Just speak to us a little bit about what your colleague here has said and where you part ways, perhaps. perhaps?
You know, I don't think the problem with the SABC is about whether or not it has enough money in terms of revenue. The problem is, how does it manage its money? That's the big problem. You know, it got a disclaimer from the Auditor General 2 years ago, a qualified audit opinion last year. So the finances are still very shaky. You know, last year we found that 3.3 billion rands worth of irregular expenditure was incurred in the last 3 financial years, for example. There's talk of a 500 million rand loss, and we're still trying to get to the bottom of that loss because we've had all sorts of explanations from management about what that loss is and whether it is actually a loss or not. So it's not about the revenue, it's about how the SABC manages its money. And I believe if the SABC managed its money better, then we wouldn't we wouldn't have the problems that we have at the moment. I must say that the new CFO is very impressive, and I was very, you know, he gave a lot of good arguments, and it seems that the SABC is doing well under his leadership in terms of finances, but it remains to be seen, as I said earlier. When we look at the Auditor General's report, when we look at the financial reports, we'll get a much clearer picture of where we are currently.
Mr. Madisha, we do understand that we're on a positive trajectory in terms of the finances. You did put it into context of where we were, where we are, and where we hope to go as a public broadcaster. Do you think that we are in a positive direction? I know there's been a lot of talk. I'm not very au fait with the finances and what it means, liquid cash and cash in the bank and versus this and that, that we're in the black or in the red. But do you think that we're headed in the right direction under this leadership in the SABC?
No, look, let me start then to respond to your question, or then responding to your question, from the issue of governance. I mean, if governance is not proper, then you won't be okay with the management of finances. So we are happy there. And we'll go back to Parliament and say, yes, we're okay. But secondly, back to the point you are raising, I'm referring to SABC, more resources, more money, because it has grown and it is growing. It's not SABC only here in Braamfontein or in the provinces, but SABC is now going beyond our borders, beyond our seas, etc., etc. Now, the people need to be paid, but the information has got to be collected and collated for the sake of the people of our country. SABC is becoming a CNN, let me put it in that way, and therefore that has got to be handled properly. And that's why I agree with my colleagues here that when we go back to Parliament, we shall put it on the table and say, Minister, Parliament, let's look at this and see how we can be able to take this thing called SABC that belongs to the people of our country forward. And again, I want to emphasize, there are many people, the working class, the poor people, who've got to get access. And these people have got to be helped as much as possible. So, yes, something has got to be done. Yes, a little bit is there to sustain it. But then, what then beyond this 2 billion rand that Claudia Mutwening has gone out to request for, to beg for, it will come to an end. It will. So hence I'm saying we need to fight very hard and make sure that we request. I'm referring to ourselves here as a committee, fight very hard and negotiate with Parliament and say, give us more, because SABC needs more for the people of our country.
At least we agree.
At least there is a point of agreement, but you have said something to the tune of 60%. Mr. Madisha said a little bit. He didn't quite quantify that a little bit.
A little
so
bit.
Davies, perhaps you can come in and say, what region are we looking at when you say no?
You know why I'm saying 60%? Yes. Is because of all of us we know that SABC is a public broadcaster, is a state-owned entity. And we must not just leave it like that and give it 2%. We must own it. We must show that we must support you. As my colleague said, that we must be cautious about our workers and about equipment and everything, infrastructure. You see, but this 2%, I think, is not enough. And we must not say 4% or little. We must say that let us go revolutionary.
Right on the other side. Mr. Davies, let me bring you into here. For those at home who are hearing figures of billions and percentages, etc., and are wondering why is it important? Would you tell us about the significance of the public broadcast? I mean, some would say, why must I pay my TV license? Why must we give a little bit more? There's so many other channels and so on and so forth. Why is this essential in your opinion?
Well, you know, it's important to have a public broadcaster because they have a certain mandate which serves the public, and hopefully the public and not any political party or any government. And that's one of the key points that we raise again and again. It's really the public's broadcaster. And I disagree with my colleague because the public do own the broadcaster because they pay their TV licenses, and that's about 13% of the SABC's revenue. So there is already that broad ownership. A lot of people resent paying their TV licenses because they don't think that they get value for money. You know, and I think that the jury is out on whether they do. I mean, there's some good programs. You know, we chatted with the cast of Generations yesterday in Muvango, and they're doing a great job. You know,
I'm disappointed you didn't say Morning Live.
You know, so and it's important to have those kind of shows that tell a South African story and that kind of thing. But I think that there is already that broad ownership. I'm very concerned about taking more money from the public to pay for the SABC, because every time you take more money from the public, that's less houses, less clinics, less hospitals and less schools. So, you know, you have to balance it. You can't just simply say the SABC needs to be funded 60% by the public because there's a trade-off involved.
All right, let's leave it there at least for now. We're going to have your closing comments just after the short ad break. When we do come back, we'll hear one closing comment per person, and I'm hoping to wrap it up quickly because we do have a little bit of a musical interlude for you also coming up a little bit later. And that is the importance of the public broadcast, because we want you to be happy and have a spring in your step as you go and take on the day ahead. All right, quick ad break, more in just a moment.